G'day everyone, today I'm going to teach you everything that you could ever need to know about the tank designer in HoY 4. I'm going to teach you how to create and edit designs. I'm going to teach you what stats are important. I'll teach you what research texts unlock new modules for your tanks, as well as give you a few suggested designs to get you started. The first thing you need to understand is how tanks are actually made. Rather than the old system, where you would just research the tank or the variants and then you're good to go, with the No Step Back DLC, you need to research a chassis and then also the modules which you fit into it to create a design. Let me show you. First, open up the production tab and then click on this little icon here. This is going to open up all of the current templates that you might have, as well as any chassis that you have available to create new design. At the moment, you can see that we've got the basic light, medium, and heavy tank chassis, as well as these two templates here. To customize one or create a new design, click on the edit button to the right of the chassis, and it will pop up this new menu. On the left side here, you can see the top module slots as well as the bottom ones that we have. You also have the ability to rename your tank to whatever you want it to be, as well as change the icon for it if you want to help differentiate them between the other tanks that you have. And you can also change the classification for what role the tank has. You can also upgrade the engine and armor rating, similar to how you could previously. And then on the top right, you've got the full breakdown of all the different tank stats, which changes in real time as you add or remove different modules. Any design needs a minimum of 5 modules, those being these 3 on the bottom here, as well as the left 2 on the top row. Starting from the bottom row, you can change your suspension type. Each has different pros and cons, of course, just like everything in HoY 4, and you can see what those are if you hover over the tooltip. You might want the interleaved road wheels if you want a bit of extra breakthrough, or the Christie suspension if you want your faster tanks. It's really up to you. The different armors you have available are pretty straightforward. The riveted armor is light and cheap. The cast armor is heavy and expensive, while the welded armor is the middle ground. Similarly, with engines, these are also pretty straightforward. You've got the gasoline engine, which gives you extra speed. The diesel engine is Old Faithful, that boosts your reliability. The petrol electric engine, it does give you good bonuses to your defense and breakthrough, but it tanks your reliability something shocking. So honestly, I never really use this. There are some builds, if you have like later tank chassis which have higher base reliability, this can be an option, but yeah, generally you're not really going to be using this one that much. The top 2 modules that you need to fill are, as you might expect, your turret and main cannon. Without these, your tanks are just rolling tin cans. You can fit either light, medium, or heavy turrets on the heavy tank chassis. Each has 4 different options. You've got the 1-man, 2-man, and 3-man turrets, and the fixed structure as well, which allows the tank destroyer role for using the heavy cannon. The other turrets add varying amounts of breakthrough for an increasing production cost. I'll just say that I almost always fit the 3-man turret if I'm making a main tank, as the breakthrough it gives you is really good for a really small increase in your production cost, and the reduction in speed is basically nothing. Finally, the last required module is the main gun. You can choose from small, medium, and heavy guns, each with different options available within them. So the light category has the most variety, with things like adding anti-air guns, or you've also got like the close support gun to make it a SPG, or you can even just add a heavy machine gun if you want to make some kind of World War I-esque rolling machine gun bunker. From here, you can add whatever you want with the other modules. The main ones that you have access to early in the game are things like the radio, which gives you a percentage increase to your breakthrough and defense, so always worth adding that in. You can also add like a small cannon that gives you a good amount of stuff, or you can add like sloped armor for extra armor, or you can add like wet ammo storage to increase your reliability, things like that. As I mentioned, you have free reign here. You can make something like this if you want to have that 5 machine gun World War I tank, or you can go, actually looking at this now, the stats are hilarious, or you could go, you know, sort of the complete opposite way, do something like this, which is really light and fast if you want to just, you know, break through those, or like exploit those breakthroughs that you make in the front lines. So you can really go whichever way you want and get real creative with it, which is fun. The real question is now, how do you know what actually makes a good tank? If you understand the main attack and defense stats in HoY 4, you should pretty much be all over this, but just in case it's unfamiliar to you, Your soft attack applies when a division has a low amount of hardness. For example, any infantry divisions, you can see here on this bar, they've got 0% hardness. So they're going to take 100% of any soft damage that your division has. Hard attack likewise only affects your divisions with hard attack. So here this division will take 50% of the damage that the hard attack. Sorry, 56% of the hard attack damage of an enemy division. So yeah, when you're looking at designing your tanks, you want to keep this in mind of like what you're going to actually be fighting, whether that is mainly infantry or if you're making anti-tank divisions, you're going to want a lot of hard attack there. So just keep that in mind. Just to clarify on that again, if you're like the main stat that you're going to want to focus on, for your primary tanks that are just going to be pushing through infantry in most of your single player games is going to be that soft attack. So that's going to be attacking your infantry. So try to get that as high as you can. SPGs or like self-propelled guns or self-propelled artillery are really good for that role. However, if you do want to counter enemy tanks, or if they're putting, you know, like armor in all their divisions or whatever the weird stuff AI does, then you're going to want to add in hard attack. Piercing affects how much damage you do to armored targets. So you want this to be at least equal to or higher than your enemy's armor rating. So for example, this tank has got 82.5 armor. So if I was designing a tank that's going to beat this one, I would want my piercing to be over 80. Like for example, if we check out this design here. So yeah, that's basically how piercing works, and also, you know, explains to you how armor works as well. If you think the enemy's got a lot of AT, you're going to want to bump that armor stat up as high as you can to minimize your losses and increase the effectiveness of your tanks. Breakthrough is another important one. So when your enemies are defending and they're dug in, more breakthrough is going to allow you to overcome their defense and actually win those battles and push through their lines. So honestly, it's probably the most important stat, particularly like, I mean, of course you need to balance this with your soft and hard attack. There's no point having, you know, 100 breakthrough if you only have one soft and hard attack. It's not going to be effective. So it is a bit of a balancing act, but yeah, breakthrough is one of the most important factors, particularly for those main battle tanks that are going to be pushing through enemy lines. Just try to get it as high as possible and you can't really go wrong. Like I said before, it is a bit of a balancing act between, you know, all those different stats. You also need to be mindful of your speed and reliability. So tanks in the game have a minimum speed of 4 kilometers an hour, which is the same as an infantry division speed. Your motorized can go up to 12 kilometers an hour though, so consider this the speed ceiling if you want. You only move as fast as your slowest equipment, so if you have a quote-unquote fast division for breaking through front lines and exploiting those gaps, don't make tanks that only have, you know, 4 or 5 kilometer an hour speed, because they're going to slow down that whole division, regardless of how much motorized is in there. You also need to be mindful of your reliability, and that is basically how likely that tank is to just sort of blow up on its own, be damaged in battle, you know, fail, break down. So as this tooltip says, it has no extra effect over 100%, but really that's about 90%. There is a whole bunch of maths that goes into this, which I'm just not going to go into because it's very complicated, but you generally, if you're doing just a very short game, you know that you're gonna, I guess, be winning your wars quite quickly, and you're not playing, you know, late into the 1940s. Reliability of between sort of 50 to 60% is fine. The losses aren't really that great. But if you're playing for a longer time, doing one of those long drawn out games like a World Conquest or something like that, or even just your standard historical game, keep your stability or your reliability, around 70%. That's going to sort of be the best balance of still being able to put, you know, these modules into your other stats while mitigating the amount of losses that you're taking. In terms of where to actually find the research, obviously most of it is in the armor tab. That's where you can research any new chassis as well as engine and armor upgrades. So at this base level, you can increase the engine and armor rating to a maximum of 5, and then each level increases it by an additional 5 beyond that. The first armor level also gives you access to welded armor, so if you're wondering why you can't equip that, that's probably why. You can also research the amphibious tank here and the amphibious drive module, which this actually allows you to turn any of your standard tanks into amphibious ones. That also adds a bunch of terrain bonuses as well, so it can be a fun thing to do late game, give you a bit more effectiveness when you're doing your naval invasions. Your armaments are researched in your artillery tab. So to see what you get, you click on a research and it will tell you in this information panel what equipment that you're getting access to. Much as you would expect, any anti-air or sort of those smaller, like the light cannon modules, like the automatic cannon and things like that, are researched in the AA line. Your artillery is any of your, as like your howitzers, your artillery guns, things like that. And then, of course, any anti-tank guns are going to be researched in the AT line. So that's your heavy cannon. As I said, some of these things, like, the automatic cannons under the AA line, and just the medium cannon, which is sort of here, the improved medium cannon and the medium cannon, they can be researched across different, like the same module can be researched across different, different techs. So just click on it, and then you'll see what is available from there. In addition to the armor and artillery research menus, you can also get some modules from the support tab here. So namely, on the 1939 engineer level, you can get the dozer blade, which adds entrenchment, and the flamethrower, which this allows you to build flame tanks. And as you can see here, get a lot of bonuses for flame tanks. On the 1939 maintenance company, you can also get the easy maintenance module, which gives you a boost to reliability. In the engineering tab, this is where you can research upgrades to your radios that you can fit to your tanks. So you can increase that up to advanced radio or radio level 3. You can also, once you research the jet engine tech, get access to the gas turbine engine, which will make a tank that almost flies across the battlefield. Another thing you get access to in this tab is the stabilizer with the improved computing machine tech. So that is going to give you a boost to your breakthrough. For some basic designs to get you started, I'm using mostly 1941 tech. This should be pretty attainable if you're a major with a few research slots, and getting some tech boosts from your focus trees as well really helps out. These are, of course, suggestions. You can play around them as much as you like to find what works. Definitely experiment, make some weird and wacky tech designs and see how it goes. Also, I'm just reiterating it. I've said it in my past videos. I've said it on Twitch. I've said it 1,000 times. So I still get heat from it in the comments. I don't build for the meta, or whatever the quote-unquote meta is. These are just designs which work well in single player, those sorts of games, sometimes multiplayer as well if you're not playing super sweaty. So yeah, just have fun. Have fun. It's a game. Remember, it's a video game. Have fun. This first one is the sort of basic, simple, medium design that I go for in most of my single player games, some of my multiplayer games with friends as well. It's just the basic medium chassis with the medium cannon, also the 3-man turret and a radio, and then I've also chucked on a small cannon and extra ammo storage here as well. So, and then you can kind of play around with the last module, put whatever you want on there. I also like going for the interleaved road wheels, giving you the extra boost to breakthrough, which pairs quite nicely with the radio. Remember, that gives you a percentage increase, so adding any extra breakthrough is sort of going to snowball. Riveted armor and the diesel engine, just for that bit of reliability. I've also bumped up the engine speed. I usually try to get it around 8 kilometers an hour, so sometimes might even just go for the gasoline engine. Of course, tanks for reliability. You can come back in here and add wet ammo. There's a whole bunch of things that you can do. It varies depending on my mood and how I'm feeling. But yeah, I don't really worry about armor too much. You can make this tank for around 11 ISC, which is quite cheap. You can pump out generally more of them than the enemy can destroy. So that's why I don't really worry about armor too much. It's quite expensive to make high armor tanks. It is fun to do, but it is expensive. So that's why I sort of go with the cheaper, more of the cheaper ones is better sort of philosophy. This is also more of a 1939 to 1940 sort of early tank. I do upgrade it a little bit later as I research new technologies, but yeah, it's really cheap, quite effective, a good starting point. A strategy that used to be super effective but was nerfed a bit is making a really cheap flame tank and then putting him on your infantry as a support company. So something like this works really great, as not only does it add extra entrenchment to your divisions, which you can see here, but it also gives terrain bonuses to pretty much everything. I like to put these on my special forces and attacking divisions. And if you need a bit of an example of, I guess, just how strong that is, if you come down here and have a look at the light tank, the light flame tank company, you can see exactly what the bonuses you get to different terrain is. So even just with a light tank, 10% in jungle, 10% amphibious, river crossings, like this isn't really to be ignored. It's quite good. And it increases if you go for the mediums or heavies as well. So you can like stack this up quite a bit, but yeah, as I said, used to be stronger, still effective. For a tank destroyer, something like this is going to absolutely mince any enemy armor, especially anything that the AI is going to make, while still having enough of its own armor to survive battles and being fast enough to keep up with your main tanks. So it is a bit more expensive, but you don't really need as many. So you can sort of cop the extra production cost here to have, you know, decent AT. So pretty much it's got the biggest heavy cannon you can find, obviously the fixed superstructure as well. You don't really need to worry about breakthrough on a tank destroyer because it's not really to break through. The small cannon squeeze bore adapter increases the piercing, and then of course giving it some of its own armor as well. So you can go to cast if you really want. It does add more armor, but also, you know, increases the production cost. So yeah, but this is sort of a starting point anyway. A lot of the time when I'm making a tank division, I'll put some towed AA in there to help prevent any CAS damage by shooting down some of those planes. So if I have the production, I'll make some cheap self-repelled anti-air guns, something like this, which I can pop in there. It just helps keep the hardness a little bit and gives you, it's just a tiny bit more air attack, which, you know, it all adds up. So something like this is what I'll go for. You know, it's quite cheap to make. Obviously, you know, the armor is low, but again, you're not, hopefully not really coming up against enemy tanks which are going to take it out. So something like this is going to do the job you need. Doesn't cost you an arm and a leg. You can even take off these extra modules if you really want to make it even cheaper. So yeah, again, this is what I mean. Like, you can add on those little extra things to give you some more stats, which is going to help your division overall, or you can leave them off and just go for, you know, saving your production by having less factories on that. There's really no one way to do it. And just as a final note, this is sort of roughly what I'll go for when I'm making a tank division. Like, this is what I sort of ideally want to get it to. This is on the mobile warfare doctrine, by the way, hence the stats being a bit higher than you might see when you make it. But yeah, basically it's going to give me enough sort of soft attack and breakthrough to push through, you know, most of the infantry. It's got a good amount of hardness as well. So any infantry, even if it's got a bunch of artillery, isn't really going to do that much damage to it. So yeah, this is pretty much the main thing that I go for. You kind of want to keep your tank divisions as big as you can. Something around 40 width is a good sort of ballpark to aim for. I do have a full division design guide, which I'll link down below if you want to check that out for sort of other designs as well. But yeah, as an armor template, this is something that I usually go for. These should get you started, but remember to try new things. Like I said, it's just a starting point. It is also a video game, so remember to have fun with it. Don't listen to all the people on Reddit that are super sweaty talking about the metas. If you are just playing single player, you know, you like history, you just enjoy playing the game for fun, roll with that. Don't listen to people who think that they know everything about the game. Do what you want to do. Just enjoy it. That's what the game's for. Do you guys know what else is going to make your tanks better than anyone else's and just absolutely blitz the competition? Liking and subscribing. I guarantee that if you do, it's going to make all of your tanks completely unbeatable. You will win every single game of Hearts of Iron for the end of time. And also, don't forget to check out my Twitch. I do stream over there a couple of days a week. Check out my other videos. The link for all of that is in the description. So stop by and say g'day, and I will see you guys in the next one.